If you look at a satellite map of Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, you will see something that defies physics. You will see buildings that are 5 stories tall, but only 2 to 3 meters wide, which is about 6.5 to 10 feet. That is literally the width of a single car parking spot. In London or New York, a building this thin is a zoning error. It's a hallway, not a home. Yet in Vietnam, this isn't a mistake. It is the most dominant, expensive, and aggressively optimized real estate asset in the country. Why would an entire nation choose to live in a vertical tunnel? The answer isn't just about architecture. It is about a colonial tax loophole that accidentally engineered a culture. If you open Google Earth right now and zoom into the chaotic heart of Hanoi, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see buildings that run 20 meters deep, but are only 3 meters wide. Remember, that's only about 10 feet wide.
These are the Nhà Ống, the tube houses.
They defy gravity. They defy Western comfort. And for a long time, they defied my understanding of how human beings are supposed to live. Why would an entire nation of 100 million people choose to live in vertical tunnels? The answer is a bizarre mix of colonial tax evasion, a brutal inheritance algorithm, and a hidden economic engine that makes these slivers of land more valuable than gold. I'm John, a Vietnamese American living here full-time. When I first moved back to Vietnam, I experienced what I call spatial shock. I went to a party at a wealthy friend's house, expecting a villa. Instead, I walked into a building that felt like living inside a telescope. I stretched out my arms in his living room and felt like I could touch both walls. I asked him, "Did you buy the leftover slice of the building? Did they run out of bricks?" He looked at me like I was the crazy one. To him, this wasn't cramped. This was efficient. This was prime real estate. That was the moment I realized I was looking at this through a Western lens, where luxury equals width. But in Vietnam, the game is played differently. Here, luxury equals access. But to understand why this architecture exists, we have to go back in time. We have to look at the one thing that shapes cities more than architects, more than engineers, and more than gravity. The taxman. There is a widely held historical theory here that explains the origin of the tube house. During the feudal dynasties, and later accelerated under French colonial rule, the government needed a way to tax property. But they didn't have satellites, and they didn't have complex Zillow data. They needed a metric they could measure by walking down the street. So they came up with a simple, brutal rule. You are taxed on the width of your facade. The government didn't care if your house was 50 meters deep. They didn't care if it was a palace in the back. They only cared about how much of the King's Road you occupied. So, the Vietnamese people did what humans always do when faced with a bad law. They optimized. They engaged in architectural malicious compliance. The logic was simple. If you charge me for width, I will give you nothing. Wealthy merchants began building houses that were comically narrow, sometimes just 2 meters wide, but extended back like tunnels for 30 or 40 meters. They built wormholes. From the street, they looked like peasants. Inside, the houses opened up into long flowing courtyards or very long corridors. They paid pennies in tax while living in massive square footage. But here's the catch. Those tax laws are long gone. The French left in 1954. The tax code has been rewritten a dozen times. So why, in 2026, are developers still building tube houses? Why hasn't the market corrected itself? Because of a second, much more ruthless force. Imagine you are a father in Hanoi in 1950. You own a standard plot of land. It is 6 meters, 20 feet, wide, and 20 meters, 65 feet, deep. You have 2 sons. You want to be fair. You want to give them both a start in life. You have 2 ways to split this inheritance. First, you could try the horizontal split. You cut the land in half horizontally. Son number 1 gets the front half, the street frontage. He can open a shop. He has value. But son number 2 gets the back half. He is landlocked. He has no street access. He has to walk through his brother's house to get home. His land is worthless, and you have effectively started a war between your children. So, you choose option 2, the vertical split. You slice the land down the middle, like a loaf of bread. Now, son number 1 gets a plot that is 3 meters wide. Son number 2 also gets a plot that is 3 meters wide. Both of them get the holy grail of Vietnamese economics, street frontage. This is the inheritance algorithm. Over 3 or 4 generations, wide colonial villas were sliced, and then sliced again, and then sliced again. It turned the city into a barcode. It seems absurd to an outsider, but this algorithm ensures survival. In a developing economy, being cut off from the street is a death sentence. Being connected to the street is a business plan. This brings us to the why of today. Why is this actually good for the economy? In the US, we believe a good store needs a wide glass window and a big parking lot. That works for Walmart. That works for Starbucks. But Vietnam runs on micro-entrepreneurship. Let's do the math on a 100-meter, 328-foot city block. In a US suburb, that 100-meter block fits maybe 4 large houses. That is 4 families and 0 businesses. But in Vietnam, if you divide that same block into 4-meter tube houses, you fit 25 houses. That is 25 families. But more importantly, because the ground floor of a tube house is almost always commercial, that is 25 businesses.
On a single block, you will have a pho shop,
A motorbike mechanic, a hair salon, a gold dealer, a pharmacy, and a coffee shop, all side by side. By narrowing the frontage, the city maximizes the number of doors. And in a cash economy, doors equal opportunity. This is a strategy of pure efficiency. It's about extracting the maximum yield from a limited resource. It actually reminds me of how I approach my investment research. I don't just look for the big, wide, obvious stocks that everyone else is buying. That's like buying the Colonial villa. I look for high-density, high-yield opportunities that the market overlooks. I use Seeking Alpha to drill down into the data. Their quant ratings help me find stocks that have strong fundamentals, but haven't popped yet, optimizing my portfolio the same way these architects optimize their land. If you want to stop guessing and start using data-driven logic, I've put a link for an exclusive discount on Seeking Alpha in the description. So, the economics make sense. But what is it like to actually live in one? I'm not going to lie to you. It creates some weird problems. The biggest one is light. If your house is 20 meters deep and touches neighbors on both sides, the middle of your house is a cave. It is pitch black at noon.
To fix this, Vietnamese architects invented the giếng trời, the sky well.
It's a vertical void cut through the center of the house, from the roof to the ground floor. It acts as a lung for the building, pulling in light and circulating air. The second problem is verticality. A tube house is a vertical village with a strict hierarchy. The ground floor is the hustle, motorbikes, customers, noise, and commerce. As you move up to the second floor, you usually find the grandparents because they can't climb too many stairs. The third and fourth floors are for the parents and kids. And finally, on the fifth floor, you find the ancestors. The family altar is always at the top, closest to heaven, and crucially, above the indignity of daily life. This layout forces a specific type of intimacy. You cannot get to your bedroom without walking past your grandma watching TV. You cannot leave the house without your dad asking where you're going. In the West, we build wide to create distance between family members. In Vietnam, the architecture forces you to collide. In 2026, land prices in downtown Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City can rival Tokyo or New York. We are talking $20,000 to $30,000 per square meter in prime areas. If you own a tube house, you are sitting on a gold mine. So, when you see these skinny buildings, don't look at them as cramped. Look at them as concentrated. They are the physical proof of a culture that values position over privacy. A culture that would rather have 3 meters of opportunity than 10 meters of isolation. The tube house is not a glitch. It is a highly tuned machine for surviving and thriving in one of the densest places on Earth. If you want to understand the hidden operating system of this country, hit that subscribe button. I'm breaking down the logic that tourists miss. Next week, we are tackling the most terrifying thing in Vietnam, the traffic. To an outsider, the intersections look like a death wish, but I'm going to show you the fluid dynamics that allow 10,000 motorbikes to cross a junction simultaneously without crashing, and why a traffic light actually slows them down. I'll see you then.